This is an Entry 3 level grammar lesson, all about phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are multi-part verbs combining two or more words. These verbs are very common, especially in spoken English and in informal writing. They are often used to replace a more formal verb. So, for example, please fill in this form is an informal way of saying please complete this form. Prepositions, for example at, up or in, are added to verbs such as go or get to make phrasal verbs. These phrasal verbs have a meaning of their own, which is often very different to the original verb. Phrasal verbs can take the same range of tenses as the other verbs. For example, they're putting up the aerial. The phrasal verb is to put up, and here in our example we're using the present continuous. She'll put on goggles later. The phrasal verb is to put on, and here we're using it in the future. Ali put off the job until next week. Here the phrasal verb is to put off, and we've used it in the past simple. There are three main groups of phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs with no object, phrasal verbs with the object at the end of the sentence. These are also called inseparable phrasal verbs, and phrasal verbs with the object in the middle or at the end of the sentence. These are called separable phrasal verbs. So in the first column, our examples are: they sat down on a chair. Look out, there's a car coming. They dropped in for a chat. These phrasal verbs don't take an object. But the phrasal verbs in the second column take an object which we put at the end of the sentence. So, for example, while I was away, he looked after my cat. Looked after doesn't make sense by itself. We need an object, and the object here is my cat. The second example, she searched for her keys. Searched for by itself doesn't make sense. We need an object. And in this example, the object is her keys. And in our last example, I'm looking forward to the end of term. I'm looking forward to doesn't make sense by itself. We need an object, and the object is the end of term. In the third column, she put down the phone or she put the phone down. Those two sentences have the same meaning. So you can separate the phrasal verb to put down, and you can put the object, which in this example is the phone, in between the two parts of the phrasal verb with no change in meaning. Look at our second example. He tidied up the mess, or he tidied the mess up. Note that pronouns, for example it, us, her or them, etc., used as the object of the verb can only be used in the middle position with phrasal verbs in group 3. So, for example, if you look at column 1, Pfizer wrote down the words. The phrasal verb to write down is separable, and the object is the words. So we can say Pfizer wrote down the words with the object at the end of the sentence, and we can also say Pfizer wrote the words down. So we can separate the phrasal verb write down with the object, the words. But if we choose to substitute the noun, which here is the words, with a pronoun, in our example in the second column, them, we must put the pronoun between the two parts of the phrasal verb. So we can say, Pfizer wrote them down, but we can't say, Pfizer wrote down them. Here are some very good everyday examples. The phrasal verb to hang out with, which means to spend time with. For example, I enjoy hanging out with my friends at weekends. The verb to wash up, which means to clean the plates. I hate washing up after eating my dinner. It is so boring. To get into, which means to start liking something. For example, I got into jogging about a year ago. I feel much fitter than I used to. To put off means to postpone or to delay. We will have to put off the meeting until next week. To go for is another way of saying to choose. I'm not sure which degree to go for. It's a really difficult decision. To run out of means not having anything left, having nothing remaining. So, for example, could you go to the shop? We have run out of milk and bread. To find out means to discover information. Last week, I found out that I had failed the final exam on the course. I will need to retake it next month. To throw away means to put something in the bin. You should never throw away plastic. It should be recycled. To look after means to take care of something or somebody. It's very important to look after your friends and family because they will always help you when you need them. And then the last example in our list, to go out. For example, to go clubbing or to leave the house. I go out once a week with friends. I probably won't do it as much when I'm older, so I'm going to have fun now. Using phrasal verbs in your everyday speech will help you to sound more like a native speaker. Try to learn them in context, as many phrasal verbs can have different meanings depending on how you use them. For example, the phrasal verb to make up can mean to put on lipstick and mascara. It can also mean to invent a story, or even to make friends again after an argument. This is the end of our lesson on phrasal verbs. Try to learn as many as you can and use them in your everyday conversations.